Some stories begin with tragedy. This is one of them. But remember, dear listener, the darkest nights often birth the brightest stars. This is the story of Chioma, a name that means good God in Igbo. And by the end, you'll understand why her mother chose that name, even as she drew her last breath. 8-year-old Chioma sat beside her mother's bed, holding a hand that had grown thin as paper. Mama's breathing was labored, each breath a battle she was losing. The single candle on the table flickered, casting dancing shadows on the cracked walls. "Mama, please don't leave me," Chioma whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her mother's eyes opened slowly, filled with a love so fierce it seemed to light up the dim room. With tremendous effort, she lifted her trembling hand to wipe Chioma's tears. "My precious girl," Mama's voice was barely a whisper. "Listen carefully. I don't have much time." "No, Mama," the doctor said. "Shh, listen." Her mother squeezed her hand weakly. "Life will be hard for you. So hard people will tell you that you're nobody, that orphans don't matter, that girls like you have no future." Mama paused, gathering strength for what she needed to say. "But Chioma, you listen to me. You are not defined by what you've lost. You are defined by what you carry inside." She placed her hand over Chioma's heart. "In here, you have my strength, your father's intelligence, and something else. Something special that I saw the day you were born." "What, Mama?" A light that no darkness can ever extinguish." "Promise me something, my daughter." "Anything, Mama. Promise me you'll never let anyone steal that light. Promise me you'll be kind, even when the world is cruel. Promise me you'll help others, even when you have nothing. Because that, my sweet Chioma, is how you become truly wealthy." Chioma sobbed. "But I need you, Mama. I can't do this alone." Her mother smiled even as tears rolled down her own cheeks. "You're never alone. I'll be at every sunrise you see, every act of kindness you give. Every time you choose love over hate, I'll be there." She began to hum the lullaby she sang every night. Chioma joined her, their voices weak but together. "Dindu, Dindu, my baby. Chukwu ga eleya gianya. God will watch over you. Dindu, Dindu, my love." Halfway through the second verse, Mama's voice faded. Her hand was still in Chioma's grip. The lullaby died in the air. And 8-year-old Chioma became an orphan. 8 years passed. 8 years of survival in a system that didn't care. 8 years in an overcrowded orphanage where children fought over scraps and dreams died before they could take flight. 16-year-old Chioma swept the orphanage courtyard in the pre-dawn darkness. While other girls her age were still sleeping, she had learned that waking early gave her precious moments of peace before the chaos of the day began. She was small for her age, with eyes that carried depths of sorrow no teenager should know. But those same eyes still held something else, a stubborn spark of hope that refused to die, no matter how many times life tried to extinguish it. "Chioma, get in here now!" The harsh voice belonged to Mrs. Badmus, the orphanage matron, a woman whose heart had hardened after decades of dealing with unwanted children. She ruled with an iron fist and a sharp tongue. Chioma hurried inside, her heart sinking. Nothing good ever came from being summoned by Mrs. Badmus. The matron stood in her office, arms crossed, face twisted in disgust. "Look at this!" She pointed to a broken window in the hallway. "Who did this?" "I don't know, Ma." "Don't lie to me, girl. You're always sneaking around. Was it you?" "No, Ma. I've been sweeping outside since 5 a.m. I didn't." Slap! The blow came so fast, Chioma didn't have time to brace herself. Her cheek exploded in pain. Tears sprang to her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "Not here. Not in front of this woman. When I ask you a question, you answer properly, not with excuses." Mrs. Badmus leaned in close, her breath sour. "You think you're special? You think because you can read and write you're better than the others? You're nothing. Just another unwanted girl who'll end up pregnant and alone before you're 18. The words cut deeper than any slap. "You'll pay for this window," the matron continued. "I'm docking your food privileges for 3 days. Maybe hunger will teach you respect. But Ma, I didn't break 4 days. Want to make it 5?" Chioma swallowed her protest and shook her head. "Good. Now get out of my sight." Every Sunday, the orphanage children were marched to church, not out of faith, but because it made the orphanage look good to donors. Chioma usually found church boring, another place where people spoke pretty words that meant nothing. But today was different. Today, there was a guest speaker. Pastor Emmanuel stood at the pulpit. But he didn't look like the usual preachers. He was younger, maybe 40, with kind eyes and a voice that commanded attention without shouting. "I want to tell you a story," he began, "about a boy who grew up with nothing. His father abandoned the family. His mother worked 3 jobs, but still couldn't pay the bills. This boy wore the same torn uniform to school every day. Other children mocked him. Teachers ignored him. Everyone assumed he'd amount to nothing." Chioma found herself leaning forward, listening intently. But this boy had something powerful. He had a dream. More importantly, he had a mother who believed in him, even when she was dying. On her deathbed, she told him, "Education is the one thing poverty cannot steal from you. Promise me you'll never stop learning. Promise me you'll use your knowledge to lift others up." Chioma's breath caught in her throat. It was as if this pastor was telling her own story. That boy kept his promise. He studied under streetlights because they had no electricity at home. He walked 10 miles to school to save bus money. He tutored other children for free, sharing what little he knew. And slowly, brick by brick, he built a different life. Pastor Emmanuel paused, his voice thick with emotion. "That boy was me. And I'm standing here today to tell you something crucial. Your beginning does not determine your ending. Your circumstances do not define your destiny. You can rise. But first, you must believe you're worth rising for." After the service, as the orphans filed out, Chioma found herself unable to move. The pastor's words echoed in her mind, awakening something she thought had died with her mother. "Are you all right, child?" She looked up to find Pastor Emmanuel standing beside her pew. Up close, his kindness was even more evident. Chioma's voice cracked. "Your story. It's like mine. Except I haven't reached the rising part yet." The pastor sat down beside her. "Tell me." And she did. Words poured out of Chioma like water from a broken dam. She told him about her mother's death, about 8 years in the orphanage, about Mrs. Badmus's cruelty, about being punished for something she didn't do, about feeling invisible and worthless. "Sometimes I wonder if God even sees me," she whispered, "if anyone does." Pastor Emmanuel was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was gentle but firm. "Chioma, that's your name, right?" She nodded. "Chioma, God doesn't just see you. He's been watching you fight for 8 years. He's seen every tear, every moment of courage, every time you chose to stay kind despite the cruelty around you, and he's about to do something about it." "What do you mean?" "My church runs a scholarship program for orphans. We pay for school fees, uniforms, books, everything. We also provide mentorship and support. I'd like to nominate you." Chioma's heart leaped, then immediately crashed. She'd learned not to hope hurt too much when it was crushed. But Mrs. Badmus would never allow it. "She doesn't like me. She'll say no just to spite me." "Mrs. Badmus doesn't have a choice. This is between you, me, and your future." He pulled out a card. "Come to this address tomorrow after school. Bring nothing but yourself and your willingness to work hard." "Can you do that?" Chioma stared at the card through tears she could no longer hold back. "Why? Why would you help me? You don't even know me." Pastor Emmanuel smiled. "Because someone helped me when I had nothing. And because I see in you what someone once saw in me, a light that refuses to die. Don't let it die, Chioma. The world needs your light. Hold on right there. If Chioma's story is already touching your heart, show some love. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Whether it's Lagos, Accra, Nairobi, or anywhere else in the world. Your support means everything. Now, let's see if Chioma takes this life-changing chance. The next day, Chioma stood outside a beautiful building with gardens and clean walls, so different from the crumbling orphanage. Her hands shook as she pushed open the door. Inside, 5 people sat behind a long table. They looked educated, successful, and intimidating. Chioma felt like running, but she remembered her mother's voice. "You have a light inside you." Chioma Adebayo? A kind-looking woman with glasses smiled at her. "Please sit down, don't be nervous. We just want to get to know you." They asked her questions. Simple ones at first. What's your favorite subject? What do you like to do? Then harder ones. Why do you want this scholarship? What are your dreams? And finally, the hardest question of all, asked by Pastor Emmanuel himself. Tell us about a time when you had nothing to give, but you gave anyway. Chioma thought back. So many moments of desperation. So many times when she had barely enough for herself, but one memory stood out. Memory stood out. 2 months ago, she began slowly, a new girl came to the orphanage. She was only 6 years old. Her parents had died in a car accident, and she was terrified. She cried every night, and the other girls ignored her. They have their own problems. Chioma's voice grew stronger as she remembered. I had been saving biscuits from my meals for weeks. I was planning to eat them on my birthday as a treat. But this little girl, blessed, couldn't stop crying. So one night I sat with her. I shared my biscuits with her. I told her my mother's lullaby. And I promised her that even though we'd both lost everything, we still had each other. What happened to the girl? The woman with glasses asked softly. She stopped crying. And now, whenever she's scared, she comes to me. I don't have money to give her. I don't have toys or treats. But I give her something my mother gave me, the knowledge that she's not alone, that she matters. Silence filled the room. Chioma saw the woman with glasses wipe her eyes quickly. Pastor Emmanuel leaned forward. Chioma, true wealth isn't measured in money, it's measured in character, in kindness, in the choice to love even when it costs us something. You already understand this at 16. Some people never learn it in a lifetime. He looked at the panel. I am moved that we accept Chioma immediately. All in favor? Every hand rose. Welcome to the program, Chioma, the woman with glasses said, her voice warm. Your life is about to change. And change it did. Within a week, Chioma was enrolled in a proper school. Not the neglected public school the orphanage sent children to, but a real school with computers and libraries and teachers who actually cared. But the hardest changes weren't external. They were internal. On her first day, Chioma sat in the classroom wearing a brand new uniform provided by the scholarship program. The other students came from wealthy families. They had iPhones and designer bags. They spoke English perfectly, while Chioma still stumbled over her words. Sometimes during lunch, she sat alone, eating the simple meal she'd brought. The other girls whispered and giggled, not bothering to hide that they were talking about her. Is she a charity case? Look at how she eats, like she's never seen food before. I heard she's from an orphanage. Imagine having no family. How embarrassing. Each word was a knife. Chioma wanted to disappear, to quit, to run back to the familiar misery of the orphanage where at least she knew what to expect. Then she remembered her mother's words. You are not defined by what you've lost. She lifted her head and kept eating. After school, one girl approached her. She was tall, beautiful, and wearing expensive jewelry. Hey, orphan girl, she said mockingly. Don't get too comfortable. Girls like you don't belong here. You'll drop out soon enough. Chioma looked her in the eye, and in that moment, she made a choice. Not to respond with anger or shame, but with grace. You're probably right, she said calmly. Girls like me usually don't get chances like this. That's why I'm not going to waste it. I'm going to work harder than anyone. And when I succeed, I'm going to help other girls like me get the same chance. You can laugh now, but I'll have the last smile. The girl's mocking expression faltered. She walked away without another word. That night, Chioma studied until her eyes burned. Not because she wanted to prove people wrong, but because she wanted to prove her mother right. Mrs. Folake Adeyemi was assigned as Chioma's mentor. A successful lawyer in her 50s, she had also grown up poor before scholarships changed her trajectory. Their first meeting was at a cafe, the first time Chioma had ever been in such a place. She felt out of place, hyper-aware of her simple clothing, compared to the sophisticated professionals around them. "Relax," Mrs. Folake said with a warm smile. "I remember my first time in a place like this. I was so nervous I spilled hot chocolate all over myself." Chioma couldn't help but smile. "Let me tell you something, Chioma. The world will try to make you feel small. It will remind you constantly of where you came from, hoping you'll stay there. But here's what they don't tell you. Your disadvantages can become your greatest strengths." How? Because you know what it's like to have nothing. You know what it's like to be overlooked. When you succeed, and you will, you won't forget. You'll remember. And you'll reach back to pull others up. That's what makes the difference between someone who's merely successful and someone who leaves a legacy. Mrs. Folake leaned forward. "I'm not just here to help you pass exams. I'm here to help you become the woman your mother believed you could be. But you have to do the work. You have to believe it too." "I'm trying," Chioma whispered. "But sometimes the pain is so heavy. Sometimes I'm so angry at God for taking my mother, for leaving me alone. How do I let that go?" "You don't let it go," Mrs. Folake said gently. "You transform it. You take that pain and anger, and you use it as fuel. Every tear you've cried, every insult you've endured, every night you went to bed hungry, those aren't weaknesses. They're proof that you're a survivor. And survivors change the world." Wow. Can you feel the power in that moment? If Mrs. Folake's words are speaking to your soul right now, do me a favor. Hit that share button. Someone in your life needs to hear this story today. Maybe it's a young person who feels forgotten, or someone who's lost hope. Share this message of transformation. Now let's continue Chioma's journey. 6 months passed. Chioma poured everything into her studies. Her grades climbed from average to excellent. She won a writing competition. She made one friend, a quiet girl named Adana, who didn't judge her background. But success came with a price. The other orphanage, children resented her special treatment. Mrs. Badmus made her life hell whenever she returned to the orphanage, giving her the worst chores and shortest rations. The scholarship covered school, but Chioma still had to live in that place of cruelty. And then, one night, everything shattered. Chioma returned from school to find her small locker broken open. The few precious things she owned were destroyed. Her mother's photograph, the only one she had, was torn to pieces. Little Blessing, the 6-year-old she'd befriended, was sobbing in the corner. "I tried to stop them," Blessing cried, "but they said you think you're better than everyone else, that you're selfish for getting help, while the rest of us suffer." Chioma knelt down and gathered the torn pieces of her mother's photograph. Her hands were shaking, not with sadness, with rage. 8 years of pent-up fury exploded inside her. She found the girls who did it, 3 older teenagers who had always bullied younger children. "Why?" Chioma screamed, startling everyone. Quiet, gentle Chioma never raised her voice. "Why would you destroy the only thing I had left of my mother? What did I ever do to you?" "You're getting special treatment," one girl sneered. "While we rot here, you get to go to fancy school. It's not fair." "Not fair?" Chioma's voice cracked with emotion. "You think my life is fair? I watched my mother die when I was 8 years old. I've been beaten, starved, and told I'm worthless for 8 years. And the first time, something good happens, you tear it down? You destroy the only photograph I have of the woman who loved me?" Tears were streaming down her face now, years of suppressed pain pouring out. "You want to know why I got this scholarship? It's not luck. It's because I never stopped trying, because I taught myself to read better, because I help people even when I have nothing. While you were sleeping, I was studying by candlelight. While you were gossiping, I was practicing English. I didn't get chosen because I'm special. I got chosen because I worked for it. The girls looked uncomfortable now, some even ashamed. And you know what? I was going to share everything I learned. I was going to tutor anyone who wanted help. I was going to fight to get more scholarships for others. But now, Chioma's voice broke. Now, I just want to leave this place and never come back. She turned and ran. Chioma found herself on the orphanage rooftop, the one place no one ever went. She sat on the ledge, her legs dangling over the side, holding the torn pieces of her mother's photograph. For the first time in 8 years, she allowed herself to truly break down. "Mama," she sobbed to the empty sky, "I can't do this anymore. I'm so tired. So tired of fighting, of being strong, of pretending I'm okay when everything hurts. You said I had a light inside me, but I can't find it anymore. It's too dark, Mama. It's too dark." She looked down at the street below. Just one step. Chioma! She turned to see Pastor Emmanuel climbing onto the roof, moving slowly, carefully. "Don't come closer," she cried. "Just leave me alone." "I can't do that." He stopped several feet away. "Mrs. Badmus called me. She said something happened. Talk to me." "Why?" "So you can tell me to be strong? To keep fighting? I'm 16 years old, and I'm exhausted. Everyone says I'm supposed to rise above my circumstances. But what if I can't? What if I'm just tired of rising?" Pastor Emmanuel was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something unexpected. "It's okay to be tired, Chioma." She looked at him, confused. "It's okay to feel broken. It's okay to cry and rage and wonder why life is so unfair. You don't have to be strong every moment. You just have to survive this moment and then the next one, and then the next one." He sat down carefully, still keeping his distance. "You want to know something? 3 years into my scholarship program, I almost quit. I was working 3 jobs to support myself, studying full-time, and everyone expected me to be grateful every second. One day, I stood on a bridge, just like you're sitting on this ledge, and I thought about ending it." Chioma's eyes widened. "What stopped you?" "A stranger. An old woman who was selling oranges nearby. She didn't know who I was or what I was contemplating. She just looked at me and said, 'Young man, you look like you're carrying the world. Remember, even the strongest tree bends in the storm. It's not shame to bend. The shame is in breaking when you were meant to bend.'" He paused. "Chioma, right now you're bending, and it hurts. God, it hurts so much. But you're not broken. Not yet. Not if you don't choose to be." "But what's the point?" Chioma's voice was small. "I work so hard, and people still tear me down. I try to be good, and life still hurts." "The point," Pastor Emmanuel said gently, "is that your mother was right. You do have a light. But lights aren't meant to shine in comfortable places. They're meant to shine in darkness. The darker it gets, the more necessary your light becomes." He stood up slowly. "I'm not going to force you down from there. That's your choice. But before you make it, I want you to think about a little blessing. Think about all the other children in that orphanage who are watching to see if it's possible to overcome. Think about the woman your mother believed you would become." He started to walk away, then turned back. "And Chioma, think about the fact that you're crying about a torn photograph because you loved your mother so much. Some people go their whole lives never loving anyone enough to cry over their memory. The fact that you hurt this deeply means you love deeply. And anyone who can love like that has a reason to live." He climbed back down, leaving Chioma alone with her thoughts. She looked at the torn photograph pieces in her hand. Carefully, gently, she began to fit them back together. The picture was damaged, but her mother's smile was still visible. "I'm still here, Mama," she whispered. "I'm bending, but I'm not breaking." Not today. She climbed down from the ledge. That was intense, wasn't it? If this story is moving you, if Chioma's struggle feels real, drop a comment right now and tell us what keeps you going when life gets hard. And don't forget to like this video. Your engagement helps us share these important stories with more people who need them. Now, let's see how Chioma's decision to live changes everything. 2 years passed. They weren't easy years. But Chioma learned something her mother had tried to teach her. Resilience isn't about never falling, it's about getting up every time you fall. She was 18 now and top of her class. But more importantly, she had become something else, a voice for the voiceless. She started a tutoring program for orphanage children. Every weekend she returned, not to live there anymore. Pastor Emmanuel's church had found her a host family, but to teach math, English, life skills. Anything she could share. Even the girls who destroyed her photograph eventually joined her program. Chioma forgave them, understanding that hurt people. But her biggest test came during the national scholarship competition. Only one student from each state would win a full university scholarship abroad. Thousands applied. Chioma made it to the final round, and so did Adana, her only friend. The night before the final interview, Adana came to Chioma's room crying, "I can't do this," she sobbed. "You're going to win. You're smarter, more articulate. You have a better story. I shouldn't even try." Chioma took her friend's hands. "Adana, listen to me. We're not competing against each other. We're both competing against the version of ourselves that wants to give up. Whether you win or I win or someone else wins, what matters is that we tried, that we didn't let fear stop us. But only one of us can get it. Then let the best woman win, and let the other be genuinely happy for her sister's success. Because that's what we are. Sisters in struggle. And sisters celebrate with each other." The next day, Chioma walked into that interview with her head high. The panel asked tough questions about her background, her goals, her plans. And then came the final question. "Chioma, if you win this scholarship, it will change your life completely. You'll leave Nigeria, get world-class education, have opportunities most people here never dream of. But we have one concern. Will you come back? Or will you do what many scholarship recipients do? Stay abroad where life is easier?" Chioma didn't hesitate. "I'll come back," she said firmly. "Not because I have to, but because I need to. You see, there's a 6-year-old girl named Blessing in an orphanage who believes in me. There are dozens of children I tutor every weekend who see me as proof that they can make it too. And there's a woman, my mother, who isn't here anymore, but whose dreams for this country don't have to die just because she did." Her voice grew passionate. "Yes, I want to study abroad. Yes, I want opportunities, but not so I can escape Nigeria. So I can bring back knowledge, resources, and hope. Because the greatest tragedy isn't poverty or orphanhood or lack of opportunities. The greatest tragedy is when people who escape those things forget where they came from and never reach back." She looked at each panelist. "My mother died because we couldn't afford proper health care. I'm going to become a doctor. Not just any doctor, but one who creates affordable healthcare systems for the poor. That's not a dream I can achieve by running away. That's a dream I achieved by coming home equipped to make change." Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she didn't wipe them away. "So yes, I will come back. Because there are thousands of Chiomas out there right now, sitting in orphanages, thinking they don't matter, thinking no one sees them, thinking there's no hope, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving them wrong." The room was silent. Then, the lead panelist smiled. "Thank you, Chioma. That will be all." 1 week later, Chioma sat with Adana, Mrs. Folick, Pastor Emmanuel, and little Blessing. Waiting for the announcement, her hands wouldn't stop shaking. The live stream began. The announcer went through other states first. Each winner's name felt like a knife, another opportunity gone. Finally, and for Lagos State, the recipient of the Presidential Scholarship for Excellence. Time seemed to stop. Chioma Adebayo. Chioma couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't process. Adana screamed with joy and hugged her fiercely. You did it! You did it! Mrs. Folick was crying. Pastor Emmanuel was praying. Little Blessing was jumping up and down, shouting, My sister won! My sister won! But Chioma just sat there, numb. Then, like a dam breaking, emotion flooded through her. She collapsed in tears, not of sadness this time, but of overwhelming gratitude, disbelief, and joy. Mama, she whispered to the sky, I did it. We did it. Yes! If you're celebrating with Chioma right now, if her victory feels like your victory, I need you to do something. Share this video right now. Tag someone who needs to know that their struggle has purpose. Tag a young person who feels forgotten. Use this story to remind someone that miracles still happen. And drop a comment telling us what this story means to you. Let's go. 4 years later, Dr. Chioma Adebayo, yes, doctor, stood at her university graduation in London, wearing her medical degree with pride. But the real celebration happened 2 months later, back in Lagos. Chioma stood before the newly opened Mama's Hope Medical Clinic, a facility she'd founded with prize money from her medical research and support from investors who believed in her vision. The clinic offered free and subsidized healthcare for orphans and low-income families. It was everything her mother had needed but never received. Mrs. Badmus was there. She looked older, smaller somehow. She approached Chioma hesitantly. I owe you an apology, the former matron said quietly. I was cruel to you. I convinced myself you'd fail like so many others, and I took out my bitterness on you. But you proved me wrong. You became extraordinary. Chioma looked at this woman who had made her life miserable. She felt anger, hurt, resentment. But then, she felt something else, compassion. Mrs. Badmus, I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. And I can't carry hate and hope at the same time. She gestured to the clinic. This place exists because of pain. Mine, my mother's, and thousands of others. But it also exists because of choice. I could have let that pain destroy me. Instead, I let it drive me. You were part of my pain, but you're also part of why I'm standing here. So thank you. Somehow, thank you. Mrs. Badmus wept. That evening, Chioma returned to the orphanage, not as a victim, but as a victor. She gathered all the children, including new ones who had never known her, and told them her story. All of it. The pain, the struggle, the moments she wanted to give up, and the people who pulled her through. I'm not special, she said. I'm just someone who refused to stay down. And every single one of you has that same power. The power to rise, the power to choose who you become despite where you started. She pulled out a photograph, her mother's picture, now professionally restored and framed. This woman told me I had a light inside. For years, I didn't understand what she meant. But now I do. The light isn't success or money or degrees. The light is the choice to love when you've been hated, to give when you've been robbed, to hope when everything says you should despair. That light, it doesn't come from circumstances. It comes from character. She looked at each child. I see that light in every one of you. Don't let anyone extinguish it. Not poverty, not cruelty, not even your own fear. Because the world doesn't need more bitter people. It needs more light bearers, more people who transform pain into purpose. Blessing, now 10 years old and thriving in school thanks to Chioma's support, raised her hand. Sister Chioma, what's a fortune? Is it money? Chioma smiled. You know what, Blessing? I thought it was. I thought a fortune meant being rich, having comfort, never struggling again. But I was wrong. She knelt down to Blessing's level. A fortune is when you have something so valuable that losing everything else doesn't matter. My mother died with nothing in her pockets, but she was the richest person I knew because she had love, integrity, and purpose. She was a fortune, and she made me one too. Chioma stood and addressed all the children. You are fortunate, each of you, not because of what you have, but because of what you carry inside. The question is, will you let the world discover your value, or will you hide it because someone told you that you're worthless? The children sat in silence, absorbing her words. I'm creating a new scholarship fund, Chioma announced. The Mama's Light Scholarship. Every year, I'll sponsor 10 orphans through school. But here's the condition. When you succeed, you must reach back and help someone else. That's how we change things. Not by escaping alone, but by building ladders for others to climb. Life had one more surprise for Chioma. During her medical residency, she met Dr. Chidi Okafor, a pediatric surgeon who shared her passion for helping underserved communities. He'd grown up poor too, though not an orphan. He understood her drive, her pain, her purpose. Their wedding was small, intimate, held at Pastor Emmanuel's church. No expensive decorations, no elaborate reception. Just people who genuinely loved them. But the most beautiful moment came during the ceremony. When the pastor asked, "Who gives this woman to be married?" 50 orphans stood up in unison and said together, "We do!" Children from the orphanage, wearing matching outfits Chioma had provided, beaming with pride. Little Blessing, now 11, was the flower girl. Chioma couldn't hold back her tears. You see, she told Chidi through her sobs, I always thought I was alone, but I was never alone. I have the biggest family in the world. 5 years into their marriage, Dr. Chioma Okafor stood before the United Nations Assembly in New York, invited to speak about innovative healthcare solutions for orphaned children in Africa. She was 30 years old now, accomplished, respected, influential. She and Chidi had 2 children of their own, and had also adopted 3 orphans, including Blessing, now 16 and brilliant. But as she stood before world leaders and global health experts, she didn't talk about her achievements. She talked about her mother. 22 years ago, she began, a woman named Patience Adebayo died in a small room in Ajegunle, Lagos. She died because she couldn't afford medication that cost less than $50. She left behind an 8-year-old daughter, me, with nothing but words. Chioma's voice carried through the assembly hall. Those words changed my life. Not because they were eloquent or unique, but because they were true. She told me I had a light that no darkness could extinguish. For years, I thought she was wrong. The darkness seemed too thick. The pain is too deep. The obstacles are too many. She paused, looking out at the sea of faces. But she wasn't wrong. None of our mothers are wrong when they tell us we're capable of extraordinary things. The problem is, the world shouts so loudly that we're worthless. We stop hearing our mother's whispers that we're priceless. She clicked on a slide showing Mama's Hope Clinic. This clinic has served over 50,000 patients in 5 years. 80% of them couldn't afford traditional healthcare. We've saved lives, delivered babies, treated diseases that would have killed people 2 decades ago. And it all started because one woman believed her daughter was worth investing in. Another slide, the Mama's Light Scholarship recipients. 75 orphans have received full scholarships through my program. 15 have graduated university. 3 are doctors, 5 are engineers, 2 are teachers. 1 is a lawyer fighting for children's rights. And every single one of them is reaching back to help others. Her voice grew more passionate. I stand before you today, not as an exception, but as an example of what happens when we invest in the forgotten, when we see potential instead of problems, when we believe in light instead of focusing on darkness. She looked directly at the cameras broadcasting her speech worldwide. There are millions of Chiomas out there right now in orphanages, on the streets, in refugee camps, in poverty that you and I can barely imagine. They have the intelligence to cure cancer, the creativity to solve our climate crisis, the compassion to heal our broken world. But they'll never get the chance unless we choose to see them. unless we choose to invest in them, unless we choose to believe that every child is a fortune waiting to be discovered. She smiled through tears. My mother died believing I would do something meaningful. Today, I'm here to tell her, wherever she is, Mama, I did it. But more importantly, I'm here to tell every orphan, every forgotten child, every person who's been told they don't matter. You are a fortune, and the world needs you to believe it. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. That night, back in Lagos, Chioma celebrated with the people who mattered most, not dignitaries or celebrities, but her real family, the orphans. They gathered at Mama's Hope Clinic for a feast. Simple food, jollof rice, chicken, plantain, but made with love. The children laughed. Adults told stories. Blessing, now a scholarship recipient herself, gave a speech about what Chioma meant to her. I was 6 years old when Sister Chioma shared her last biscuits with me, Blessing said, her voice strong and clear. She didn't know that, at that moment, she was teaching me what real wealth looks like. It looks like sharing when you have little. It looks like loving when you've been hurt. It looks like giving hope when you've known despair. She looked at Chioma with tears streaming down her face. You told me I wasn't alone. You told me I mattered. And because you saw me, I learned to see myself. Now I'm going to university to study social work because I want to help children like we were. I want to be someone's Chioma. The room erupted in applause. Chioma hugged Blessing tightly. You already are, my sister. You already are. Late that night, Chioma sat in her bedroom, looking at her mother's restored photograph. Beside it was a new frame containing a picture of all 75 scholarship recipients. Chidi came and sat beside her, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. Proud of you, he whispered. I miss her, Chioma said softly. Every achievement, every milestone. I wish she could see it. She does, Chidi said with certainty, and more importantly, she knew. Even on that last night, dying with nothing, she knew. She knew you would become exactly who you are. Chioma leaned into his embrace. Do you think I've done enough? There are still so many children suffering, so many I can't reach. Sometimes I feel like I'm just one person trying to empty the ocean with a spoon. You know what's beautiful about that? Chidi replied. You keep using the spoon anyway. You keep fighting anyway. That's what makes you a fortune, Chioma. Not what you've achieved, but who you've chosen to be despite everything. She smiled and kissed him gently. We should sleep. Tomorrow we're opening the second clinic, and I have surgery in the afternoon. Such is the life of a world changer, he teased. As Chioma turned off the light, she whispered to her mother's photograph, Good night, Mama. Thank you for the light. I'm still carrying it, and I promise I'll never let it go out. 10 years later, 35-year-old Dr. Chioma Okafor returned to the orphanage one more time. But this time, she came with news. The government, inspired by her work and international pressure, had agreed to completely renovate the facility. No more crumbling walls, no more overcrowding, no more cruelty. But more than that, Chioma had personally funded a transformation. The place would become Mama's home. Not just an orphanage, but a comprehensive center providing education, therapy, skills training, and healthcare. Mrs. Badmus, now retired and volunteering out of genuine desire to make amends, stood beside her as they cut the ribbon. Who would have thought, the old woman said quietly, that the girl I abused would save this place? God did, Chioma replied simply. He saw what you couldn't. He saw what I couldn't see in myself. That's grace. The children poured out of the new building, laughing and playing in a beautiful courtyard with gardens and recreational facilities. One little girl, about 8 years old, approached Chioma shyly. Are you the doctor lady? She asked. I am. They say you used to live here, that you were like us. I was exactly like you. The girl's eyes widened. And now you're a doctor? A famous one. Chioma knelt down to the girl's level. I'm a doctor, yes. but that's not what makes me rich. You want to know what my real fortune is? The girl nodded eagerly. My fortune is that I get to look into your eyes right now and tell you something my mother told me. You have a light inside you. A light so bright that no darkness, no poverty, no pain, no person can ever put it out. You just have to believe it's there. Can you do that? The little girl thought for a moment, then nodded solemnly. I think so. Good. Because one day when you're all grown up and successful, some other little girl's going to need you to tell her the same thing. That's how the light spreads. That's how we change the world. One conversation at a time. One act of kindness at a time. One person choosing to believe at a time. Chioma stood up and watched the children play. Behind her, the plaque on the building read, Mama's Home in Memory of Patience. Adebayo, who taught her daughter that true wealth is not what you keep, but what you give away. And below that, a quote from Chioma herself. An orphan is not defined by having no parents. An orphan is defined by what they do with their pain. Let it destroy them, or transform them into someone who ensures no other child feels forgotten. Chioma looked up at the sky, where the sun was setting in brilliant shades of orange and gold. She could almost hear her mother's lullaby in the wind. Dindu, Dindu, my baby. Chukwu ga eleya gianya. God will watch over you. Yes, Mama, she whispered. He did. And through me, he's watching over all of them. She turned and walked toward her car, where Chidi and their children waited. But she paused and looked back one more time at the orphanage. No, at Mama's home. A small figure stood at the window of the new building. The 8-year-old girl. She waved excitedly. Chioma waved back, tears of joy streaming down her face. Because she knew the light had been passed on. The fortune was growing. And somewhere, her mother was smiling. And so, we come to the end of Chioma's story. Or perhaps it's just the beginning. Because her story isn't really about one girl who overcame impossible odds. It's about what's possible when we refuse to let circumstances define us. It's about the choice we all have every single day. To be victims or victors. To let pain destroy us or transform us. To focus on what we've lost or what we still carry inside. Chioma lost her mother. She lost her home. She lost her childhood. But she never lost the one thing that mattered most, her light. That stubborn spark of hope that refused to die, no matter how many times life tried to extinguish it. You have that same light. Yes, you are listening right now. Whatever you're going through, whatever you've lost, whatever pain you're carrying, you have a light inside you that this world desperately needs. The question isn't whether you'll face darkness. We all do. The question is, will you let that darkness convince you that your light doesn't matter? Or will you shine anyway, knowing that even the smallest light pushes back the darkness? Chioma chose to shine. And in doing so, she didn't just change her own life. She changed thousands of lives. She became a fortune, not because of what she accumulated, but because of what she gave away. That's the secret, you see. The secret her mother knew. The secret Chioma discovered. The secret I'm telling you right now. The greatest fortunes in this world aren't found in bank accounts. They're found in the hearts of people who choose love over hate, hope over despair, and giving over taking. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become, despite what happened to you. You are not defined by your pain. You are defined by your response to that pain. And you, my dear listener, are a fortune. Whether you believe it yet or not, you are a fortune. If this story touched your heart, if Chioma's journey inspired you, if you felt something shift inside you while listening, I need you to do something right now first. Hit that like button. Show us this story mattered to you. Second, share this video. I mean it. Someone in your life needs to hear this today. Maybe it's a young person who feels forgotten. Maybe it's a friend going through hard times. Maybe it's someone who's lost hope. Share it with them. Be the person who passes on the light. Third, comment below and tell us. Where are you watching from? What's the biggest lesson you're taking from Chioma's story? How will you choose to be a fortune in someone else's life? We read every comment. Your words inspire us to create more stories like this. And finally, subscribe to Fortune Tales by Simple and turn on that notification bell. Because we have more stories coming that will challenge you, inspire you, and remind you that your life has purpose. Remember, you're not here by accident. Your story matters. Your light matters. And someone out there is waiting for you to shine so they can find their way out of the darkness. This is Fortune Tales by Simple, reminding you that the greatest wealth you'll ever possess is the courage to become who you were meant to be. Stay blessed. Stay inspired. And never, ever forget